Okay, we will call to order the June 20th, 2018 meeting of the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission. Our first order of business is to look at the agenda. Anybody have any additions or changes to that agenda? If there are none, I'm sorry?
Staff
Okay.
doesn't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
If there are none, let's have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes of the May meeting? No corrections or additions. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, with that, we have two action items this morning. First is special use permit. Mr. Hadley, you're going to introduce that for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's SUP 00618, hazardous material storage. It's for MBI Energy Services on Lot 3 on the west 102 feet of Lot 4, Block 2, Porter's Second, located at 110 29th Street East, which is north and east of Walmart. With that, I believe the applicant is here. They met all the requirements from fire and all of our internal city departments, so the staff recommendation is to approve this application. But the applicant has provided a pretty thorough application packet, and I believe they're probably here to visit with you on it.
Okay, looks pretty
Haven't received
self-ex-
any comments either, sorry. Haven't received any comments from the public on it.
Sure. Looks pretty straightforward. If you've got anything you'd like to add, please step forward and
Good morning. My name is Brian Miller. I'm representing MBI Energy Services, and I think Mr. Hadley's covered it very well. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
okay.
Mr. Miller, if I might, you did read through the review and the 8 conditions of approval, so you're aware of those. Is that correct? Or?
Correct. I do not have a copy with me.
Okay. You want to? I'll give you mine.
Okay, any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Miller or for staff? All right, Mr. Miller, looks like we have no questions for you. This is a special use permit, and we'll open the public hearing for any comments from the public. If anybody has questions or comments concerning this agenda item, please step forward. State your name, give us any comments that you might have. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Anything from commissioners? Well, if there is nothing, then we need a motion.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the petition for a special use permit, SUP-006-18, for on-site explosive storage, subject to the conditions listed above as meeting all the requirements of the City of Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. We will move to our second agenda item, which is the ordinance on the medical marijuana issue. Ms. Murtha is not here, so Mr. Hadley, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is medical marijuana ordinance for manufacturing and dispensary facilities. Basically, as we've discussed the last couple months, the special use permit would be required. You can see in Section 2 in Ag, GI, LI, and GC for manufacturing and dispensaries in LI, GC, CC, DC, and a PUD district. I believe fire is here. They had some concerns with the manufacturing, and I think you have a copy of the email in the GC zone because of the designation of the building at that point. So with that, I think maybe asking Mr. Sivak, Chief Sivak, to come up and maybe explain a little better than I can what the concerns would be in the GC zone. Thank you, sir.
Morning, Mr. Sivak.
Morning, Mr. President and Commissioners. Our Fire Marshal, Mark Selly, has been staying abreast of this as best as he can, especially in the states where these already exist. The lead in that circumstance is Colorado. And depending on the process used in the extraction, it could throw a facility that's a manufacturing facility into a hazardous group category. So there's a lot that we need to know about the facility before we really know that it would fit in the general commercial zoning. And we have a concern in the wording of this that general commercial may not be where we want to see a manufacturing facility. There's a lot to the extraction process. There's a lot of different ways and a lot of different methods, and some of them we wouldn't want in the general commercial area. So a wordsmithing issue possibly, but a concern that we should have in mind as we look at crafting this.
Chief Sivak, could I ask you, with the special use permit for each one of those applications and your review on that, would that be adequate or not, do you feel? Do you feel there's some areas in GC that this could work?
Well, I guess I'd have to throw that back to you, Mr. Hadley. Would the special use permit and would the ability for us to weigh in on it at that point in time prevent something from being in the general commercial zoning if this is crafted to include it?
Given the fact that it would be a special use permit and it would be a public hearing, so it would follow our agency checklist process that we use, this board would then hear, just like now, your concern. You wouldn't necessarily need to appear to make that concern. It would be part of the staff review and then the recommendation. I feel that if someone went to visit with you before they even made a formal application to the city and you had some major problems, it would never get to this point.
Well, I think then if you all feel that way and are comfortable with that, that answers our concern that if a facility, if we would ever have a manufacturing facility, and depending on its processes, if that would be the case, that it would truly be a hazardous occupancy building by virtue of its processes, that regardless of general commercial being mentioned in this, that it could be prevented from being in there if necessary. If that's crafted that way, that answers our concern then.
I had the same question, but it also begs the question, why do we want to keep the GC in the list? And I'm not saying we shouldn't. Is it simply a matter of
We have a
giving
lot of
more and more options?
Sorry, we have a lot of GC zoning districts that are light industrial feeling, where this probably could take place and be a normal use for that particular type of GC that's been developed throughout the years. There's other areas that no, it would not fit in. So I mean, it's not like any other special use permit. Chief's concern is valid in that that's why it would be a special use permit, that we would evaluate that particular site rather than just the use.
So if we leave the GC in, that means the SUP process would have to have detail on the on the manufacturer.
In Fire Marshal Sully's research so far, and again, most of this, and we can share this information with you if you'd like, most of this is from Colorado. Generally speaking, these are facilities that you would not want in a general commercial area, from what's happening already in another state. That's not to say that a facility couldn't come forward with a process that is different, but this is what our research is telling us so far. But if the system and if the process would work the way we're talking about, that we could address that, and you're correct, we'd need the detail, definitely. I don't disagree that it does beg the question, should it be in there? But if the process lets us address it, then it's okay.
And it's up to the board. I mean, if you're not comfortable in including it, and maybe don't want to deal with it in that particular designation, then we can surely strike it out. But it was put in there, basically because there are a lot of GC areas that are light industrial feeling.
Mr. Chairman, reading through this ordinance, I guess my concern is the use of the word dispensary. And it's almost like we're confusing some of the wording, or I'm confused on the wording, because at one point we're talking about a dispensary to sell usable marijuana, and then we're also talking about a facility to generate marijuana to sell to these dispensaries. Are we not?
Yes, both.
Okay, so then if I read this correctly, is there a 1,000-foot limit on the edge of the property for, I guess,
For manufacturing.
for manufacturing only? So I don't want there to be confusion that somebody couldn't open up I guess, and they're using a different term for the actual place to sell it. They're using it as,
That's dispensary generally.
it generally is used that, but they're calling it something else. They're calling it like a health, I think the chief understands where,
Yeah, I can't think
what
of
I'm
it right
looking
here.
for. Yeah, care center. You know, and I guess I'm a little confused on how we're using dispensary, and if we're confusing the two, because we're including dispensary in with manufacturing. I understand manufacturing, they have to dispense it to the care facilities, but I think the state's also using that word dispensary in a term of, that is included with the care centers. So I don't want all of a sudden that we're muddled because of just the one word.
Looks like the ordinance takes the definitions right back to state law.
Right, to the state law, yes.
I think Attorney Murtha did take it directly from the folks that wrote this that she used to work with. So, I mean, I can't really speak for her, but I think that's why she crafted it that way. It does include the 1,000-foot on both, if you look on the second page. So the 1,000-foot distance is for both.
So that would basically eliminate anybody opening a care facility in downtown Dickinson.
Why would it?
Well, you're saying it includes both.
Generally, it's just 1,000 feet from schools
Yeah.
for either a manufacturing or a dispensary. So
School
certainly
type
some
uses.
areas in downtown would be excluded. I haven't drawn the radius up from all the schools that we have today, but
A block's 300 feet long, roughly. So yes, it wouldn't be directly adjacent to Third. Wouldn't be on Second. Probably be all the way down into the heart of downtown would be where
You're
you
right, there
get.
wouldn't be much left.
No,
There wouldn't be much of downtown left.
But the 1,000 feet that's a state law, isn't it?
It's a state, I think it's a state
I think it is.
recommendation. I don't know if it's a law.
In the legislation, it's 1,000 feet from the boundary of a property, of an existing public or parochial school. That's not a recommendation. That's actually in the statute.
Okay, but that's for the manufacturing dispensary.
It's for both the dispensary and the manufacturing facilities.
Okay, so there's the confusion again, because what we have here is medical marijuana manufacturing dispensary. 3B.
Oh, I see.
To your point, Mr. Decker, I'm wondering if maybe that's just simply a typo.
I think
Well,
that's
If you look at-
there's my confusion right
right.
there.
If you look at when we define the two terms, that manufacturing is just, it might have just been,
Manufacturing dispensary have to be separated.
I think that's it.
And they are, I think,
Right.
under 3B, it should just read medical marijuana dispensary.
which would follow the defined term
Because under
up in one.
3A is medical marijuana manufacturing facility. 3B
Right.
should just be dispensary.
So
Right.
that's what, when I'm reading that, it's either a typo or, but we need to correct that. And then it does eliminate, to Mr. Josephson's case, it does eliminate a lot of our property once you start drawing that 1,000-foot circle.
Well,
Mr.
again, if
Chairman?
there-
Mr. Chairman, that's all I wanted to bring to the commission.
Thank you, Chief Sivat. Yeah, I think that's a good catch. I think that must be a typo when
Yeah.
that needs to be fixed. The 1,000 feet, it doesn't sound like
We have a choice on
we
that.
have much choice.
Right. But what my fear is that we relegate these facilities to some outer boundary that we can't properly police.
If you recall, the original drafting of this ordinance did not have downtown commercial included in a dispensary. We added that.
Or CC, I don't think was included
Right.
either.
Right.
Right.
I mean, there's probably areas that, once you draw out the circles, you're going to see the select locations.
Well, in other words, we actually liberalized the location issue. So if most of downtown isn't in it, we're still more broad than we
Right.
were
We
when
are.
we started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to correct the language on that,
Yes,
just to make sure that
yes.
there's no confusion.
Okay,
We'll note it and pass it on, and then we can also provide a map showing 1,000-foot
I think that would be helpful, so.
from that.
okay, if I could, back to the issue of the manufacturing in GC. One of the things that I'm wondering about is monitoring and enforcement by staff. Is that, are we putting more on staff by,
By including it in GC,
Mhm.
we have to follow up with each of the special use permits annually, so it really doesn't. Or if we have an application for a dispensary, we're going to have to follow up on it anyway.
Okay.
So really doesn't make any difference where it is.
what are your thoughts about the GC issue?
My personal feelings on the manufacturing facility, I don't think it should be located within the city proper, but I don't think anybody's going to apply to manufacture within the city limits, but I don't know.
I think if,
I would think it would be a very large facility regardless. So if you're growing, it would be hard to find it in general commercial anyway, a facility that would meet your needs. But I could be wrong with that too. I mean, maybe there is something.
I think we've put enough protections in place with it having to be reviewed in special use. It doesn't really, I mean, all staff is going to look at it anyway before it gets to us, so I don't know that it makes any difference. If there's that situation where it does fit somewhere.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so it appears to me that we'll be moving forward in our motion with the ordinance as written, other than that correction in 3B. But let's take a minute and open this up to the public for any comment. If there's anybody who would like to make any comments on this proposed ordinance, please step forward and let us hear what you have to say. And it appears that there are none. So what are your wishes, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, do we have an ordinance number on this?
It doesn't, sir, it doesn't get an ordinance number until it gets to the city commission.
Okay. I would make the motion to approve the ordinance with changes
What changes, Mr.
to
Decker?
to 3B.
Okay. So we're changing the title of 3B to medical marijuana dispensary,
Dispensary.
eliminating the word manufacturing. Right. It's a good catch. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries, so that recommendation will go to City Commission. That is all we have for our regular agenda, and we have no work session items, so we'll move into our presentation. And Mr. Decker, I don't know, you probably need to call a City Commission meeting to order,
Okay.
I suppose.
Do we need to adjourn this meeting?
I think this meeting will continue too, right?
I just saw the agenda as an adjournment on it, so.
We're going to move.
But that's whatever we need to do.
I believe it's advertised as a special city commission meeting.
Right.
The planning commission will still be involved, obviously, and you guys, the plan is you're going to sit up here, all of you.
Okay.
And so then, yes, the mayor would take the meeting from that point on.
Okay, well then we will look for a motion to adjourn this planning and zoning meeting.
I will make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so we are adjourned. Go ahead, Mr. Decker.